to you. We need some happy Friday time.
Yes.
So good morning. So it looks like we just went live. Leslie Forde, good morning. Thanks for joining us. So, you are a mom, a working mom. I'm a working mom. There are so many working moms who are trying to make all of this in their lives balance and work and feel good about themselves and feel good about their families and their kids and their jobs. And boy, you have really had your fair share of trying to understand how this works for women and how to make it work for women. So you are someone who was very overwhelmed, as so many people are after your daughter was born, and you were thinking it was just you. And you were struggling with new mom stress, no time to take care of yourself, trying to figure out food, trying to have some kind of personal and professional growth. You have a background in research, and you were wondering how other moms were managing. Like, what is this thing? How do people manage this throughout history? Why is it so hard?
Yeah.
And you really wanted to figure out how other moms were doing it.
Yeah, I was convinced I was doing it wrong. I thought this can't be right. This feels so bad. This can't be right. It was, after my daughter was born and I went back to work, it was the first time in my life that people who didn't know me would come up to me and say, "You don't look well." I mean, that's how
I don't feel well.
Right. I was like, no, because I'm not well. I don't feel well. I had, been working at I was always one of those people who never needed a lot of sleep. My husband used to call me the Energizer Bunny. So I was not prepared for what it would feel like to have a second child, return to work, chase after an active toddler, and try to fit everything back in to my life and to my work and in the ways that I did before. I found myself, there were days that I would drive to the office and not remember how I got there. There were days that I would drive all the way to the office, which was almost an hour away, and realize I'd left the breast pump at home.
Oh no! Oh my gosh, it's horrible.
Right, exactly.
And I would cry.
Exactly. You would want to cry, and I would just drive all the way back. And I had become like this tired, crazy zombie person, and it just wasn't sustainable. Like, I completely crashed and realized that I couldn't continue that way anymore. So I completely reorganized my life. I left the job that I once loved, which, was kind of tragic for me because it was an organization and that I loved, people I cared about, but everything had changed when I came back from maternity leave. I was really dealing with new responsibilities, a new role. Strategically, the work had changed and what the company needed from me had changed. But I was at my most depleted and my most vulnerable.
With more demands at work and at home.
Exactly. And, it was a couple of years later when I started this kind of process of finding out what other moms were doing. I was having a casual conversation with a dad, and I was doing a little advisory work for his company. And he said, "Why are moms so stressed?" And the company was focused on the mental health space. So he said, "Why are moms so stressed?" And I said, like, how much time do you have?
Yeah, right. Where do we begin?
Exactly. I said, well, there's Maslow's hierarchy of needs, and then there's mom's hierarchy of needs.
Yes.
And, I said it and it clicked, like something changed for me saying it. Mm-hmm. And I drew it on a little piece of paper, and I started to wonder, how would other women think about this? How would other moms describe it? Would it look like mine? And what are other women doing to figure this out? Mm-hmm. At that point, my daughter was 2, and I was just like, how are other people figuring this out? So I kind of returned to my research roots, and about 150 moms later, I refined the mom's hierarchy of needs to what it is now. And thank you for popping up the visuals. So when I drew this, I realized for the first time that I was trying to do the impossible. Everything at the bottom, our children's well-being and their milestones and their health and their activities. And then you kind of get into household and everything associated with our roles there and running it. When you kind of get up into the middle section, our professional roles, healthy relationships with other adults, self-care. And in my world, self-care involves sleep, right?
Exactly.
It's not like going to the spa, right? It's everything that you do for your physical, mental, and emotional well-being. And then way up at the tippy top are the interests. And, we've always been conditioned to take care of ourselves and do those things that fuel us when everything else is done. And until I drew this, I didn't realize, wow, everything at the bottom is never done. Children's milestones, never done. Housework, never done. And that changed everything for me, because once I saw it visually, I became ruthless about carving out time for activity at the top. And through that process of reconnecting to what fuels me, making space for movement, making space for sleep, returning to reading. Now, granted, my children are still young, so it's not like I can sit down and relax with a book, but I listen to audiobooks and I'm pre-pandemic, I listened to them on my commute. Now I listen to them while I'm chopping carrots, but I loved to read. I loved to learn new things. And I had let all of that go. And gradually I hollowed myself out. And when you reach that point of burnout, it's not good for you. It's not good for your family.
Right.
It's not good for your career. It's not good for anybody.
Not good for anybody. Right. Absolutely. I love that hierarchy of needs. It's brilliant. And that idea that these things at the bottom are never done. And so you have to be ruthless. I love that word. You are ruthless about carving out time. That's so brilliant. And for those of you who are joining us today, feel free if you'd like to say a quick hi. We'd love to know that you're here. Certainly don't have to, but feel free. And you're always welcome to ask a question of Leslie, since we're fortunate to have her. But that idea, I mean, as a therapist, I'm talking to moms all the time. And I'll tell you, rarely do I'm saying rarely because I don't like to speak and declare, real definitives. Right. I cannot think of a mom I've worked with who has felt like they were really doing a good job, especially right now. And how horrible that they're always robbing Peter to pay Paul. They're never doing a good enough job. And they're doing everything they can for their family while they are withering and then wondering why they can't do better. So you did approach this using research, which I love. Can you tell us a little bit about doing this as research?
Absolutely. Well, it's been the most gratifying. It's probably been the most gratifying endeavor I've taken on. And that was to hear from other mothers originally. And now I'm also hearing from parents. And so I'm also hearing from dads, which has also been quite amazing. But just to see the outpouring of stories, people are feeling this in their daily lives. And just knowing that I wasn't alone was incredibly powerful. Sure. Understanding where people are finding those moments of magic where they can reconnect to their identities, connect with their children, connect with their partners, grow in their careers, and figure out what are those components, what does that look like, and how can I make more space for those things myself. And now that I've been doing this research for several years, like, how can I help others find this path? Mm-hmm. It's been a series of kind of deep dives into different topics. I started off really wanting to understand all of the internal reasons that the stress is so hard. And you described it very well. People don't want to feel like they're doing a bad job. And everyone wants to be excellent. Everyone wants to be excellent at
I want to
everything.
be excellent.
Right.
Always, I want to be excellent.
Exactly. Everyone wants to be excellent at everything. And it's the values conflicts of, wow, am I being the best mother that I can be? Am I being the best partner that I can be? Am I being the best employee or worker that I can be? Am I being the best daughter to my aging parents, right? And the role conflict among all of the different responsibilities that we have, and how it starts to feel wearing when you can't do 100% of all of them, right? Which is impossible. And you have to make those trade-offs. Those trade-offs just start to make, they start to erode you because you feel less like yourself. Yes. And understanding that there are trade-offs, understanding that cumulatively, showing up and taking these things on in your role as a partner, as a parent, as an employee, as an entrepreneur, whatever the roles that you play, showing up and doing that in a way that's authentic to you. And it doesn't have to be perfect, is okay. And I'm seeing that. Some of the bigger findings, mental load, stress, and cognitive overload.
Yeah, tell us about that.
Yeah. So there was a whole lot of conversation around the mental load for moms a few years ago. And I just got incredibly curious about how other people were experiencing it. And for anyone who may not be familiar with the term, it's that invisible to-do list that's running through our minds at any given time.
Always.
So you might appear to be having fun. You could be sitting on your, outside. You could be sitting
on your deck.
On your deck. You could be sitting at the beach. You could be on vacation. You could look like you're having a wonderful time, but what's going through your mind is, oh my gosh, my son's shoes. I meant to order another pair from Zappos. They're getting too small. Did I schedule that haircut for my daughter? Ooh, I have a big presentation tomorrow and I haven't even started it. Are we going to be able to leave here on time? Because I need to start dinner and I didn't pull anything down from the freezer, right? It's that constant.
Right. And do I have all organic, fresh, locally sourced food for my children?
Exactly. Because
that I picked this morning.
Exactly. Because some article, right, that pops up into your feed has told you that all of the things that you need to be worried about as it relates to non-organic food. And it's that like constant assault of stress. And it really kind of steals the joy from day-to-day life. It steals presence.
Exactly.
And it's managing that and setting up life so that you kind of understand that that's going on in the backdrop, how to create, in my case, what I really have done is creating a lot of habits and routines to minimize cognitive overload and spend my brain cycles on the things that I really care about. That was a pretty key piece of research that helped me understand the best ways to support my journey, the best ways to help share and support other people's journey. And then I did a really big study on boundary setting. And personal boundaries are kind of the antidote to overdue and never done.
Well, that's what we need to know is how do you get to the antidote? How do you get out from under the mental load? And you said to ruthlessly carve out time. It sounds like this is a part of it.
Absolutely. Because unfortunately, no one is going to tell you, wow, you look really tired and you look really stressed. And why don't you sit down and let me come in and do all of these things for you? I mean, my husband's a lovely man. He really is. But my husband didn't have that conversation with me when I was burning out and felt like I couldn't carry on. I was so distraught. Nor did my boss or employer at the time have that conversation with me. So you have to kind of decide for yourself that, wow, okay, I am going to make some space, and it can be small. It can be, especially during the pandemic, it can be really small, right? You can walk into the bathroom, shut the door, and splash some cold water on your face. You can,
right?
You can take
really good.
Exactly. Mm-hmm. You can take 5 minutes and do a quick meditation and do some deep breathing to center yourself. If you're on a call, I know that we're all on Zoom right now and there's so many video meetings, but it's okay to say, you know what, I'm going to join by phone and I won't be on video for this call because I'm going to take a walk during this call.
Right.
And there are calls where you can do that. You aren't the main speaker. You don't have to be on screen. And increasingly, I have done that. I have had other people do that I've been in meetings with. And, what a great way to kind of bring some movement and bring some sunshine and some fresh air into a time where we're all under tremendous pressure.
For sure. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the pressure right now, I'm thinking of moms who are just having babies or whose children are so small and are, this is a frequent, I can't even think of how many times in a week I'm talking to moms who are sobbing because there's no time and their kids aren't learning and it's so painful for them. And there's no way for them. They feel there is no way for them to carve out, to be ruthless about that time. And they, in the beginning, will find my comment about how necessary it is, because we're running a marathon right now. I mean, it's a marathon anyway, raising kids. So
I'm so glad that you said that, especially marathon. I'm studying the pandemic right now for parents, and I have now just about maybe just shy of 1,300 people who've participated in the research since March. And across all stages of life, right, you have new moms who are just terrified to bring their babies out or are heartbroken because they can't have their babies meet their friends and their loved ones and their parents because of the fears, right, of the virus. You have pregnant moms who, in the study, who have expressed just being terrified that they could be separated from their baby at the hospital or separated, unable to do nursing, unable to do that really critical, bonding time if they were to test positive or someone in their family were to test positive. But I also have parents in the study who have older children who are, they're teens and they're college-aged, young adult children who are, heartbroken over missing milestones, who are experiencing depression for the first time, who are experiencing anxiety for the first time, who feel incredibly disconnected without their normal social routines. And school being at home, for many of the parents who have children with learning differences or were receiving any kind of specialized support through their school system, in this era where a lot of us have mine are in other rooms right now on Zoom school.
Zoom school
is in session, right? So a lot of those structural supports that the schools provided to families and to children aren't accessible in the same way with schools that are remote or offering hybrid learning. So parents are really struggling to support their children emotionally, support their children's education, maintain a household when all of a sudden you have, everybody locked down together 24/7, meals are at home, right? School's at home, work's at home. So the housework is through the roof and there isn't a lot of space. And it's damaging people because they feel the lack of work-life separation. They feel the lack of buffer in their relationships at home. And, so there aren't easy answers, but I do believe there are answers.
Yeah, well, I mean, you do talk about so much about, I love your website. Please go to Leslie's website because you talk about the emotional, the mental load, which we're all dealing with right now. You talk about the work-life balance. You talk about nutrition, which I think is great. I'm looking through your columns. I'm thinking, how fantastic is that?
Yeah.
Because you really are saying we do have to address all of these. And boy, we are not going to be perfect at them right now. We're not going to be up to our regular standard. And I've been talking to people a lot about redefining that standard. It just is not good enough. It has to just take on new parameters. It just does. And I'll tell you, we work with a lot of same-gender couples, same-sex couples in our practice. And I would love to say that, this is very different, but then you have two moms who are both feeling the same thing. It's like, oh my gosh. Or sometimes there's two dads. And it's like, how come you guys aren't as stressed? So it does sound like even in your research, you were finding some very similar things come up with moms and dads, and then you were finding some different things coming up with moms and dads. So what have you noticed there? Because all of that is probably just the volume's just turned up right now. But what did you notice are the similarities and differences with moms and dads?
Yeah. Oh, that's such a great question. It's interesting. Now, so there are more similarities than differences, which in and of itself is interesting. I mean, this is hard, right? And this is hard for people, right? It's emotionally hard. It's physically hard. In organizations, it's leadership hard. People are grieving the loss of the lives that they once had. They are in many cases grieving for losses and for loved ones that have been directly affected. So people are experiencing this. And then there's a financial component and stress. There are quite a few people in my research where even if they've not been directly affected in their work, they might be partnered to someone who is a small business owner, or partnered to someone who has been furloughed or laid off, or they themselves have been laid off and they're trying to look for new work in the pandemic.
Yep.
So there's a financial component. What I've seen that's been a little bit different between moms and dads, that dads are in some cases, more, I think what I've seen is a thread around, we ask questions about how are people feeling that they're doing in each of their roles, right? And most parents in the beginning felt like they were doing terribly as workers. It was nearly 60%. And they were doing terribly or less well than usual as workers. Yeah. That's improved, but it's still about 44% of parents that have said that they're doing either not as well as usual or terribly as workers.
And this is dads too.
And this is dads too. And I'm seeing with the dads a lot of emotion, moms and dads, but with the dads, there's a lot of emotion around not being able to do as well at work and not being used to that feeling. And I think, and again, this is a hypothesis, gendered roles still play out in most households. And even with some same-sex couples that will respond to the surveys, there will be something in that relationship where one partner really wants the other partner to do something. And it doesn't fall along gendered lines, but there's still some sort of, conflict, area of difference. Where relationships, right? But I am seeing among the dads that there is this, thread of, wow, like I'm not used to being pulled away from my work in this way. I think mothers, again, in the traditional gendered roles that mothers are placed into, when mothers are partnered with dads, mothers are more likely to be the one to be interrupted from work, to leave, to take a child to an appointment, to be called out, to leave work if the school calls and someone's sick. So in some cases, this sentiment that I'm seeing might be because it's a new thing for dads to be really pulled in and out of work and having to kind of respond to the disruption, right, of being pulled in and out of work all day long. Yeah. Right. So I think that's something that I'm seeing. I've also seen an interesting thread where there's a number of dads who said that they're facing the reverse of the gender divide, in that employers are sensitive to working moms, but one dad said, it's not just moms who take care of children. And I wish employers would understand that, right? Which I thought was wonderful because again, right? Like I think it's good for everybody.
Good for everybody.
If it is a shared experience among dads and moms. So I'm seeing that thread as well, that some dads are not getting the same support and flexibility at work as perhaps the moms might be in their organizations.
Yeah, right. And thank goodness you have some research that you're doing. I think that's part of what is beautiful about this, Leslie, is that you've done research. You're talking to people about their experiences. This isn't a lab experiment. It's really talking to live people, getting their real opinions. I love it. And since you're talking about dads, I love this quote. This is from your article in the Washington Post, where evidently your husband had responded to it. He texted you and said, "The imperialist milk will not be tolerated by the proletariat." It's so funny. So obviously he was at home and you were out, but he was able to maintain his sense of humor regardless. And I don't know if that was funny at the time or not, but it sure is now. So I just
yeah. Well, that was a great example. So I was traveling and working in Shanghai at the time. And so we decided to go as a family. And my husband was watching the baby while I was working and I was out in meetings. So the baby decided the baby didn't want to take bottles.
Perfect.
Because we, traveled to the other side of the world, and I'm like,
that's the time.
Oh, that's the time, because I'm running through the streets of Shanghai with a breast pump and trying to like navigate my way and pantomime my way, because of course I did not speak any Chinese.
Yeah. How do you
exactly?
Breastfeed. Yeah.
Exactly. So it was. So that was really interesting, and I had to completely like arrange my work calendar so that I could go and feed the baby in between meetings for the first few days that we were there. But once he adjusted, things improved.
Yeah, but that's something dads don't have to deal with is the truth. So ultimately, Leslie, we just have a few minutes left. I mean, this is such great information, and I hope people will go to your website, read your articles. It's such good information. What do you ultimately recommend for moms? And of course, it's dads too, but for moms, in order to find that balance right now, if you had to give them your number one suggestion, what would it be?
Setting boundaries.
Yeah.
Carving out boundaries at home and at work. It's whatever you're doing, it's awesome. Whatever you're not doing, it's okay. It's like,
I love that.
Awesome. And self-care is different for everybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's another area that some people have actually found creates pressure for them. I'd interviewed a woman recently. For her, self-care is binge watching Netflix and spending the weekends relaxing and having her husband watch their daughter. So that self-care can be, taking 10 minutes to enjoy ice cream. I mean, it can be whatever you care about.
Right. It doesn't have to be a spa day.
It does not have to be a spa day. It does not have to be elaborate. And it can be 5 or 10 minutes to yourself, but whatever it is that feeds you and fuels you and makes you feel good, put it on the calendar, make yourself unavailable to your colleagues, to your partner, to your kids. Have someone else, if you are partnered, have someone else help you with the kids. If you are not partnered, that's too long a conversation to have right now, but give yourself 5 or 10 minutes each day and increase the time. Make space for yourself, and you will be surprised how much better you will feel and how much better you will be able to handle all of the roles.
You'll be a better mom. And as we were talking about in the beginning, we all want to be excellent. And people forget how important refueling is, right? Self-care sounds like it's optional. Like, what a luxury. Right. It's such a necessity. And then you can be closer to excellent. if you're able to do that. So, and you know what, the thing, I encourage people just to use their basic math skills. When they say, I don't have time to do that. I say, well, hang on a second. How many minutes are there in the day that you're awake? How many of those minutes are you spending taking care of somebody else? Right? Let's just do the math. Pull out a calculator.
Right.
And if you take 10 minutes, what percentage is that? So we do a quick percentage and it's like 0.001% of their day.
Exactly.
Like, do you think that could be okay? And then we also, in order to make it more okay, we talk about, would it be okay? You can do that for your spouse too.
Mm-hmm.
Just offer it for them.
Absolutely. On Saturday mornings now and Sunday mornings, I'm allowing my kids to have a snack, a little like just, a wheat tortilla with some cheese around it. And then I will wake up later, go for a longer run, and make breakfast when I come back.
Exactly.
It's like, it's not the worst thing in the world to feed your kids breakfast at 11 o'clock and give them a snack beforehand. I mean, I'm just like, right. I've given myself permission to do that. It's like, you know what? They can have a snack and breakfast can be a little later and I can have a little more time in the morning.
They'll live to tell, and you will be a much more excellent human for it.
Exactly.
Leslie Forde, thank you so much. I could go on and on speaking with you. You're lovely, delightful. I love your work. Please go look at Leslie's website. It's Mom's Hierarchy of Needs. There's articles, there's some recipes. There's just really good information about personal, professional, and that organic, locally sourced food. So I highly recommend it. And if you would like to know more about what we're doing at the Juniper Center, please take a look at our website. We are at thejunipercenter.com. And if you're interested, I have a new podcast that I'm doing that is the Mental Health Business Mentor. If you are a mental health provider, just to help people figure out how to do the business side, to have more business agility, because as a professional caretaker, so I'm a caretaker at home, I'm a professional caretaker too, we often don't learn how to do that for ourselves, how to really do the business side, so we have more time to do the things we want to, like take a 10-minute time to go into the bathroom and have some peace. So thank you again, Leslie. I hope to speak to you again sometime. So appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Everyone who watches this and is joining us today, thank you for doing so. We do these once a month. Please join us again next month. In the meantime, be well.